I think we've all been in that situation where you can stare at a language textbook until like 2 in the morning.
Oh, absolutely. Just trying to cram.
Right. You memorize 500 new vocabulary words, you master the intricate grammar rules on paper, and then you completely freeze when a barista in a foreign city asks you for your order.
Your mind just goes entirely blank.
Exactly. And, if you are listening to this, you have likely hit that unyielding wall when trying to learn a complex new skill.
We really tend to treat our brains like a computer hard drive.
Assuming that if we just upload enough data, the output will naturally follow,
Yeah, but the human brain is not a hard drive. It behaves much more like an intricate muscle.
which is a huge distinction.
It is. I mean, it's a profound misconception that failing to recall information in the moment is a failure of memory. Because in most cases, the data is stored perfectly well in your brain.
So it's not a storage problem.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The failure is in the retrieval mechanism. And that is deeply influenced by how we approach the act of learning in the first place.
And that distinction between storage and retrieval is, well, it's the entire foundation of what we are unpacking today.
Definitely.
We're taking a deep dive into an instructional framework designed by the English Easy Practice channel. But our mission here goes far beyond just a standard language lesson.
Right, because hidden inside their material is this highly specific three-step architectural progression.
Yeah, it's built to take someone from basic, hesitant English to fluid, advanced mastery. Or, frankly, to conquer just about any overwhelming subject you're currently tackling.
Because the underlying mechanics of how we acquire and execute a complex skill are entirely universal.
Completely. So let's unpack this from the absolute ground up. Before we even touch on vocabulary or grammar, we really have to look at the psychology of learning.
The foundation.
Right. I always think of this step like an operating system on a computer. You cannot run heavy, advanced software on a buggy, overwhelmed operating system.
No, it just crashes.
Exactly. If your CPU is constantly throttling because it's overheating, the best application in the world is still going to fail.
That analogy perfectly captures the initial hurdle. And the material we are analyzing illustrates this dynamic through a dialogue between two distinct characters, Anna and Mark.
Okay. Set the scene for us.
So Anna represents the classic overwhelmed learner. She is staring at her materials, feeling deeply frustrated, doubting her own capacity, and, basically standing on the edge of giving up entirely.
I mean, she is the embodiment of every person who has ever tried to learn a new coding language or a foreign tongue at midnight.
We've all been Anna.
Oh, absolutely.
But then Mark provides the counter-narrative. He is energetic, he's highly motivated, and he operates on a very specific core philosophy.
Oh, choose one.
Well, he tells Anna that stating, "I can do this," rather than defaulting to "this is too hard," literally changes the way his brain functions.
Wait, literally?
Yeah, it physically makes the learning process easier.
Okay, I have to push back a little here on behalf of the listener. If you're rolling your eyes right now, I do not blame you.
I get it, yeah.
Because positive thinking sounds like a cheap bumper sticker, Like, how does pasting a fake smile on your face and thinking happy thoughts actually help you decode advanced English syntax?
It sounds incredibly dismissive of how hard the work actually is.
Right. It sounds dangerously close to, like, toxic positivity.
It does on the surface. But the cognitive reality of what Mark is advocating is deeply rooted in neuroscience.
Okay, color me intrigued.
So the instructional dialogue deliberately highlights specific vocabulary to frame this journey. Words like thoughts, grades, mindset, and crucially, the word replace.
Replace.
Right. Mark is not telling Anna to just be happy or to ignore her frustration. He is instructing her to actively replace her negative, defeatist thoughts with a very specific, action-oriented daily mantra.
And what's the mantra?
I will try my best every day.
Oh, interesting. Notice he doesn't say, I am perfectly fluent today.
Exactly, because that would be a delusion.
Right. I will try my best every day is a commitment to the process. It's not a magical claim about the end result.
And that is the vital distinction. The creators of this material explain the mechanics behind this approach. A positive, action-oriented mindset keeps your brain in a state of calm.
And calm is good for learning.
Calm is essential. When your nervous system is calm, you retain more information, you articulate more clearly, and your rate of acquisition actually accelerates.
Let's dig into the biological why there. Because, as we said, it isn't magic.
No, it's pure biology.
When you are terrified of making a mistake, say, you're speaking to that barista we mentioned, or giving a presentation in a new language, Your body literally triggers a mild fight or flight response.
Yes. Cortisol and adrenaline just flood your system.
Wow.
And when that happens, your brain perceives a threat. It doesn't care that the threat is just a misplaced verb conjugation.
It reacts as if a predator is in the room.
Exactly. Consequently, it diverts metabolic energy away from your prefrontal cortex.
And that's the highly evolved part of your brain.
Right. Yes. The part responsible for complex thought, memory retrieval, language processing. It funnels all that energy toward the amygdala, which is the primitive region focused entirely on basic survival.
So your brain essentially decides that remembering the Spanish word for coffee is irrelevant to surviving a tiger attack. So it just shuts that pathway down.
That is exactly what happens.
Which is why you suddenly forget a word you've known perfectly well for 10 years. Panic acts like a literal firewall blocking your own vocabulary.
It really does. Fear of mistakes causes hesitation, and hesitation breaks the flow of communication.
So how does the framework address this?
It emphasizes a profound shift in perspective. Successful learners do not feel a sense of shame regarding mistakes. They categorize failure merely as a step toward success.
Just data.
Exactly, an essential piece of data needed for improvement. By actively removing the fear of failure, you prevent that cortisol spike.
You keep the prefrontal cortex online.
You do, which clears the mental bandwidth required to absorb and output new language.
You are cooling down the operating system so the heavy software can finally install. Panic is just the absolute enemy of retention.
It is. If you approach a learning session with a defensive posture, constantly worrying about your grades or your performance, your brain is expending all its energy defending your ego rather than absorbing the material.
That is such a crucial reframing. So, okay, once you manage to calibrate that mental operating system, once the nervous system is calm and receptive, what's next?
Well, the challenge becomes how to properly input the data. We have to move from the abstract realm of mindset into concrete physical mechanics.
Right, the actual heavy lifting.
Yes, which introduces the second phase of the framework. This phase focuses on breaking the deeply ingrained habit of passive listening.
And the method they present for this is just wonderfully straightforward. They call it listen and answer.
It's a classic technique, but highly effective.
Instead of just letting the listener passively consume the dialogue between Anna and Mark, like watching a television show, the audio actively tests them.
Right, it asks seemingly simple foundational questions about the story. Things like, who is happy and motivated? Or, what does Mark believe in?
But the non-negotiable physical requirement of this step is what makes it so potent.
Yes, the learner is explicitly instructed to pause the audio and answer those questions out loud.
Out loud. Not whispered, not conceptualized silently in your head.
Yeah.
I really want to hover on this point because falling into the trap of passive consumption is, it's just the most common mistake self-directed learners make.
It's so easy to do. You feel like you're learning.
Right, but you can watch 100 hours of a marathon runner's footwork, and that does not mean your own legs know how to run 26 miles.
That's a perfect analogy.
You have to train your mouth and your brain to synchronize.
Yeah.
It's entirely about building vocal muscle memory.
And there's a neurological reason for that. Passive listening relies on a cognitive function called mere recognition. You hear the word motivated in the audio, and your brain signals, ah, yes, I recognize that term.
Which feels good.
It does. But recognition is an incredibly shallow neurological process. It requires almost no effort because the information is already fully constructed and presented to you.
It creates a false sense of fluency. You understand the podcast you're listening to, so you assume you can speak at that same level?
Exactly. But recognition is just reading the menu. It's not cooking the meal.
I love that.
So what happens when you speak out loud?
When you are forced to answer the question, who was happy and motivated, out loud, you shift from passive recognition to active recall.
Which is much harder.
Way harder. You must reach into your memory banks, retrieve the specific noun Mark, construct the grammatical architecture of the sentence in real time, send the signal to your motor cortex, and physically coordinate your lungs, vocal cords, and tongue to produce the audible sound.
That is a massive neurological lift compared to just nodding along to an audio track.
It's a completely different brain workout. By repeatedly answering these basic questions aloud, you are essentially forging a new superhighway in your brain, bypassing that clunky, slow translation phase we all suffer from initially.
Yes. You stop thinking, okay, what is the concept of happiness in my native language, and how do I map that onto the English equivalent?
You just directly wire the conceptual thought to the English output.
Exactly. Now, to keep the learner from getting overwhelmed by this heavy lifting, the framework includes a brilliant safety net rule.
Oh, right. And this circles perfectly back to the positive, low-stress mindset we established in step one.
It does. The instruction is simply this. If you don't know the answer or you freeze up, do not stress.